No, not at all. Real Madrid outplayed for that second half. Arsenal take a 3-0 lead into the second leg at the Santiago Bernabeu next week. Frank Leboeuf joins us. We'll be hearing from Frank in a moment. This scoreline almost compliments Real Madrid.
Yeah, to put it one way, Arsenal scored 3 and Thibaut Courtois was outstanding.
Yep.
So that tells you it could have been a lot more. I mean, Real Madrid could have nicked one in the first half. They had a couple of chances. Second half, it was a non-event. Best performance of the season thus far from Arsenal, there's no doubt about that. Kind of normal performance from Real Madrid. Maybe get away with it against, when they're playing some of the teams lower down in Spain. We've seen it, is it Leganés recently and one or two others where they've struggled, but sort of got away with it. They didn't get away with it tonight. They just did not. And this is a long road back for them. We've seen it. Have we seen it before?
Never for Real Madrid. Not 3-0. Not 3-0 going into a second leg.
We saw that. We were discussing before watching the game.
Yeah.
When I think I asked the question, and it was the Barcelona PSG.
The remontada, the 4-0.
Which was incredible.
Yeah.
But this is very, very unlikely unless we see something that we've not seen all season, apart from 45 minutes against Dortmund. I keep going back to that. 45 minutes against Dortmund in the second half, they were unbelievable. They're going to have that answer.
We'll talk about Real Madrid a little bit later on. Let's focus on Arsenal first half, who kind of grew into this game as it went on.
They did, and while, yes, the first half seemed to be even, it could have gone either way, the energy was always with Arsenal. And one of the things that they exploited that it's easy to pick out when you're playing against Real Madrid is that, guess what? When you isolate players at speed in wide areas, Real Madrid are in trouble. So Bukayo Saka, whenever he was in a 1v1 situation, whether that was Alaba, at some point it was Bellingham, it's a drop of the shoulder, I'm going to the outside, I'm going to the inside, and Real Madrid don't know how to handle that. Arsenal identify that, and it's obvious to be able to identify that. You know full well that you got mismatches on the outside. Arsenal did that very well, and they were sort of missing that center-forward presence in that you're thinking every time that Saka got out on the outside, Martinelli got on the outside, and they put balls across, you saw a couple of balls just going right in front of the goal. It's like, well, where is your center forward? Well, that center forward doesn't quite exist for Arsenal. And so you're kind of thinking, man, are they going to miss out on this game? Because, once again, that would have been the discussion, no center forward. But the second half was just far too much Arsenal. And I'll ask the question, does Declan Rice not take free kicks in practice? Because if this is the way that he can take free kicks, why hasn't he been taking free kicks the whole time for Arsenal? And whoever is taking free kicks for Arsenal, let Declan Rice take it. Of course, we're going to focus on the free kicks because of how special they were. But on the whole, Arsenal were far superior to Real Madrid, certainly in the second half. The midfield was dynamic. The outside players were dynamic. And then I'll circle back to the center forward. It may be Mikel Merino, but that third goal was taken as a high-class, front-end, center forward, so cleanly taken, 3-0. And to your point, Craig, I don't think there's a way back.
And hats off to Arsenal for not shrinking up against Real Madrid, as we've seen teams do in the past, Frank.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I saw them so clear about what they want to achieve and how they're pursuing everybody that they're capable of winning, easily winning in the second half. I don't think they're going to collapse in the second half, in the second leg, sorry. I doubt about that. And I saw quite of a shy Arsenal in the way that they were pretty slow, trying to not lose the ball first half. But because Real Madrid didn't come back from the dressing room in the second half, it was really a dominant Arsenal that I saw. And clearly, we had doubts about Gabriel not being there, but Kivior did the job. Everybody did the job. I never expected Saka to be at that level. But as Craig said, when Real Madrid plays against players on the wide side, they are in trouble. And we could see that with especially with Saka during his time he was on the field. So I don't see Arsenal being able to collapse and not knowing what to do at Santiago Bernabeu. I think it's for me already over, because Real Madrid is not capable of reacting that way against a very good Arsenal. we were talking about Dortmund, but Dortmund did not for clear and from far at the same level as the Gunners.
This has been coming for Real Madrid, though, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. And if you think about where Arsenal were, we talked about it for the last few days, where are Arsenal really strong? They're pretty strong all over, but the middle of the park. You know, they're really strong in the middle of the park with Rice, with Partey, with Odegaard. And where were Real Madrid stretched? The middle of the park, because they played with Bellingham on the left, they played with Rodrigo on the right. They had Camavinga and Modric 2 against 3, really, and Modric is going to be 40. Mm-hmm. So you can't get about. And then you got your wide guys, you know, your wider guys in midfield, Rodrigo and Bellingham. They're trying to tuck in to help, but they're worried then about getting out to help David Alaba, who's got Bukayo Saka, and Valverde, who's got Martinelli. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place by how far do I tuck in to help my midfield, and what about my duties to help the fullback? And in the end, they did neither. And Arsenal completely... I mean, Rice, Partey and Odegaard, particularly Rice and Partey, were just picking balls up and popping the ball wide, or they were popping it into Odegaard. They could pretty much do what they wanted. And we said, Arsenal can dominate the middle of the park. And I think, unfortunately for Carlo Ancelotti, his options were limited in there. One thing we talked about, would he risk taking Valverde out of there and putting him to right back, which he did. Now, I think in hindsight, and it is hindsight, I think that's a mistake. You know, Lucas Vazquez is not the best, but he's played in that right-back slot quite a few times. I mean, numerous times. But taking Valverde out of there and leaving Camavinga and Modric without the energy and the dynamism of Valverde, and also the fact that he gets up and supports, defends, supports, tackles, gets around the field. I think looking back now, taking his energy out of that midfield was a big, big mistake.
If you were to give marks out of 10 for Vinicius Jr., for Mbappe, you're talking 3 or 4, aren't you, in this game? Really poor showings.
Well, Mbappe was better than Vinicius.
Yeah.
At least in the first half.
Just poor showings from your superstars who you need to shine on nights like this. And once again, they fall short, as Real Madrid have done so many times this season against proper teams.
Yeah, and while it's obvious to focus on Vini and Mbappe because they are who they are and the expectations are on them, and it should be. It's not unfair to single out Vini Jr. and to single out Kylian Mbappe. When you watch Real Madrid play, the sense that I get from them is that this team is broken. Structurally, there is no structure. There is no organization. And how do you know that? It's because it always feels like Real Madrid are playing a man down. They never actually get close enough to press the ball through the midfield. They never get close enough to actually double team somebody on the outside. It feels like they're always sort of kind of searching, how are we going to defend here? How are we going to defend there? The truth of the matter is that they get disorganized. They get stretched. There is no structure to Real Madrid. And so when you have a team like Arsenal that can knock the ball through the midfield and stretches that midfield, now you get exposed. And you get exposed in many different angles, in many different ways. If you look at Real Madrid today, you have your back line, that the midfield are basically on top of the back line because they're under pressure by Arsenal. Then there is about I would say a gap of about 30 to 35 yards. And then there is Vini on the left over there and Mbappe over there. This space of 30 to 45 yards was actually handled by Arsenal the whole night. Real Madrid push back, push back, push back. Vini maybe going on a counter. Mbappe maybe going on a counter. But even when they went on a counter, there is no support coming from behind because of that gap that I just talked about. Again, this team lacks structure, lacks balance, lacks organization. And to say that this late into the season, in a Champions League quarterfinal, is a referendum on both the players and also on Carlo Ancelotti in not figuring out, how can I find balance with this group? If you're going to play a 4-4-2, you don't play Rodrigo. You don't play Rodrigo, right? Just make the tough decision that Rodrigo's going to have to sit on the bench, because what you're saying in playing in a 4-4-2, you are conceding that we need to find structure and organization, and we need numbers in the midfield. Well, Rodrigo is not a guy that is going to give you numbers in the midfield, because he just starts wandering, and you lose the ability to control the midfield area, which happened time and time again.
They are broken. And it's very difficult to see.
They're in a title race in Spain.
But
somehow.
Are they really in a title race?
Well, you could see at this rate Barcelona taking another 4 off them in the middle of May.
Yeah.
If it even goes that far.
Yeah, and you got the Copa del Rey final as well, by the way, before then.
Can I say something really silly here? Well, I say something really silly probably most times. I just can't get my head around it. I'm ruling them out. I know what we've just witnessed. I know we watch La Liga every week, and if you're, and I know I'm not taking anything away from Arsenal, but if you're an Arsenal supporter and you're watching this programme and you support the team, maybe you go to the games, you probably don't watch La Liga. But it isn't, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's not beating the Real Madrid as we know it. They've been so easy to play against this season, and fair play, Arsenal took full advantage of it, but we've had this discussion almost every week here about their performances, about their defending, about the lack of Mbappe doing something. Yeah, he scored a bunch of goals, don't get me wrong, in La Liga, but really not to my knowledge, in the real big games. But in my head, I can't rule them out. I just can't. No, I can't, because, you know, there's going to be so much pressure on this manager now, who's just been so brilliant that he's always come up with something.
But he just hasn't all season. We're waiting for him to come up with something.
But he's managed to come up with something that's kept him in the coattails of Barcelona without being brilliant. The results have been more than decent. The performances have been average. But is there going to be a special night again at the Bernabeu? I think it was mentioned in commentary. Was it 2-0 down against Man City with 10 minutes left? I know it's a different version of Real Madrid. I understand that. There's no Benzema. Things have changed. Mbappe's come in. They have issues in defence. They have some injuries. They now have suspensions. I think Tchouameni's back. I think.
Yeah.
That'll be at least something for them. And maybe Vinicius and Mbappe and Rodrigo have this amazing night and put Arsenal to the sword. I'm not ready to go.
Wow.
I can't. Just in case.
Just in case. Well, we know. Obviously, we will know by next week. Just going back to the goals, Frank, which was the better free kick for you?
The second one, for sure. The first one, you know, Courtois had a great game, but I have question marks about his wall.
From that, he's denying that now in our ears. That is not a position you cross the ball. However, you know, we've had all these sort of tongue-in-cheek, and the camera did cut to the set-piece coach a couple of times. That's something you can't really teach. You work on your technique. You work on things in training. I mean, Declan Rice...
How come you've never done that before?
Sorry?
How come he's never done that before?
Well, he takes the... I don't know. I mean, maybe at West Ham he wasn't taking free kicks. Certainly at Arsenal, he's one of the players that takes corners with their success from set pieces. He takes them usually in swinging, so he can strike the ball. I don't know. I haven't got the answer why he hasn't done it before. But I'll tell you one thing. From now on, until he has a couple of boo-boos and skies a couple over the bar, he's just brushing everybody else aside. I mean, it was I suppose if you've not done that at elite level before, what a great time to do it.
Not bad, is it? Quarter-final against Real Madrid.
Real Madrid, best goalkeeper in the world, top corner. Doesn't get much better than that.
Look at this list that have scored 2 free kicks in the Champions League in the past. He's the first one ever to do it in the knockout stages. You got Hakim Ziyech did it back in 2023-24. Neymar, Ronaldo, Rivaldo. Not too bad.
No, not too bad. But I'm going to take Declan Rice and his 2 goals today, because the execution was just something special. That second free kick, you cannot tell me this guy hasn't taken free kicks in his life. Honestly, and if we're going to be talking about the set-piece coach, why hasn't the genius put him on free kick duty?
This poor guy's got it.
Why isn't this genius telling Declan Rice to hit free kicks when we see this? Honestly, coming in here today, we would not have thought that we would be talking about Declan Rice scoring free kicks. And what a free kick.
But the thing is, the second one as well, I don't want to labour this, but the wall is on the right-hand side. And the second one actually goes in Courtois' side.
Yeah.
He's got that side. The wall's protecting the right-hand side. That's the goalkeeper's side. Now, normally at that point, we are lambasting the goalkeeper for, you know...
That should be your side.
You know, just, you know, edging across to try and go to the other side. And even if he did take a very, very small step, he wasn't getting that. Because not only was it in the top corner, but it was hitting with such pace that, as I say, best goalkeeper in the world, and he was getting nowhere near it.
Go on, Frank.
He made a statement, and even when he's going to play with England, there's going to be a question mark. You know, everybody will say, you know, Declan, try it on, because, you know, when you did twice, you can do it thrice, and that's possible. I mean, really, that was 2 masterpieces. There's nothing to complain about, and how he curved the first one, and how he smashed the second one. It's something you don't really see quite often. And when you see that and you do it once, but you can do it twice, it means that you have the skill for that. And every game Arsenal is going to play and will have a free kick for, they're going to say, Declan, go for it. And if he scores another one, I can tell you, even with the national team, Harry Kane, Bukayo Saka, I don't know who's going to maybe take charge of it, will say, well, maybe we give a chance to Declan, because that guy made a statement tonight.
But Arsenal, you know...
You've been banging on about the need for a striker. And if they've stumbled across Moreno, of course, scored a big goal tonight.
Well, they scored a few, but he's a goal-scoring midfielder. We've seen that with Spain. We saw that with Sociedad. He had some period in England before, I think, at Newcastle. He was a bit less experienced, didn't quite work for him, but he's a guy who gets his quota of goals from midfield. He's a perfect sort of fit for it. He's big and he's strong. He's got good timing. He's got a nice left foot. He's strong in the air. So, yeah, I mean, it's a short-term fix. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus and Havertz are injured. It's a short-term fix. But I think more importantly, it was the way Arsenal sort of outplayed Real Madrid all over the field, particularly in the second half. They knocked it around. It was quite embarrassing in the end, actually. And think about the other side of it, is that Real Madrid's strongest point could not affect Arsenal's weakest point, because Arsenal at the back were missing Gabriel, they were missing Calafiori, they had to put Kivior back in there, who did a good job. But I'm sure when Arteta was putting his team together, that was one of his major worries, was how would Kivior handle the occasion, how would he handle, you know, Vinicius, Mbappe, Rodrigo, how would he handle the balls over the top? And really, there's nothing of any note to discuss, apart from that one pass from Bellingham in the first half that he slid down the side. There's nothing really of any note that I can remember where the 2 centre-backs were scurrying back because they got themselves in a bad position and Mbappe was running through and goal. And maybe that's, you could say, that was great teamwork from Arsenal, yes. But I think a lot of that is down to the fact that Real Madrid did very, very little with the ball. Go on, Frank.
Craig, at first half, you know, you have to consider that Vinicius Junior, has a big chance, and Saliba can counter the ball that Vinicius was trying to give to Mbappe. Mbappe has a very good chance in front of Raya. You were mentioning Kivior's mistakes. That's the only one. Where Bellingham got the ball back and give it to Mbappe. It could have been another story. It could have been another story, really. At the end of the game, you can say that that would have been unfair, but that would have been really unfair. But you could say as well that could have been another story. And if your megastar are not capable of scoring a goal with the tactic that Ancelotti put on, that's maybe why Real Madrid have lost 3-0. But again, they had 3 big chances the first half.
I forgot about that, Kivior.
Yeah, they had chances, but then Courtois made some great saves.
I was off trying to reapply for my corporate card.
Yeah, good. Let's take a look at the odds then to advance to the next round, where, of course, the winners will face either PSG or Aston Villa. Oh, wow. 12-1 on Arsenal. Meanwhile, Real Madrid 23-4. Give me a percentage, Frank.
For me, I would say 80% chance of Arsenal going through.
So 20% chance Real Madrid.
Yeah.
You just keep touching your head a lot.
Yeah, but I think I'm a bit... got a few issues today. Computers, cards. Just general issues, really.
Yeah.
10% I'm giving them a 10% chance Real Madrid have gone through. Very minimal, but not dead. Yeah, I know.
I'll cut that in half. 5% for Real Madrid, 95% Arsenal. And I think I'm being kind to Real Madrid. This may get ugly for Real Madrid.
It's already got ugly in La Liga, hasn't it, recently for Real Madrid, of course, losing at home against Valencia. The weekend sees them away against struggling Alaves. Ooh, if they lose that, dearie me. That is 9:45 Eastern. Leganes against Barcelona, the late game on Saturday.